Good afternoon. So this is the follow-up video to the overview of the two case studies, one about Shein thinking about doing their IPO in the UK because they feel they won't be able to go to the US because of their regulations, and another on the UK economy and economic output and how it's been very flat, and some analysts think it's going to get a bit improved in the future. So if we're thinking about this, we've got Shein, obviously in context with this year's research theme of the clothing industry, UK economy, because some of the questions in paper 3 may be focused on a country and not so much a company, and we've got to make sure that we're answering it directly. This goes into this unit and lots of other units as well that we talked about in the previous video. So here are the case studies, like I mentioned. You can pause and reread them or read them for the first time if you want to. And this is the 20 marker. I introduced this as potentially extract C. We've got trend data of real GDP growth. And remember, the term real GDP is after inflation. The government macroeconomic target in the UK is 2% real GDP growth per year. And as we can see by this, it's very close to zero. Okay, so moving on. This is the question. So the first thing we need to do is we need to identify the hook in the question. So we're thinking, we obviously will make sure we read this so it's in context. We've got the IPO challenges in the US, so maybe they should come to the UK, and in context with the current economic outlook. So this is in extract A. So it's got to be wrapped around and linked to the economic outlook. Okay. More importantly, is going to be identifying the hook here. So evaluate the potential impacts on the UK economy. So this is our hook. So I will put a H next to this. This reminds me to come back to the hook in context, obviously, at the end of every chain of argument. Now, we haven't got the obvious hooks like increased sales or profit maximization or happiness or labor turnover. So what we have to do with this type of question is we have to understand what's important to, in this case, the UK economy. Our default will be macroeconomic objectives. We could be thinking about lowering unemployment. We could be increasing GDP, like we mentioned. If we're thinking about increasing real GDP, we need to understand inflation because it's real. We need to think about the components of GDP. So C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So it could be talking about the circular flow of income and how this might be the multiplier effect. We also need to make sure that we contextualize everything, because with this type of question for students that have done their revision, which should be all of you, it's tempting to throw in loads of technical jargon, multiplier effect, circular flow of income, those sorts of things, economies of scale. However, if you don't contextualize it, it's just knowledge. Okay, we don't want to be capped at level 2 for an abstract answer. Okay, context is king, and we just need to make sure everything is contextualized. Now, we know that Shein are a fast fashion manufacturer retailer, and we've already read a case study on them. Okay, so we need to discuss the benefits and drawbacks. This is me giving you hints and tips to make sure it's balanced. You won't get this in a real question. Never know, you might. And then we're looking for our structure. Now, what we have with our structure is local and national. Now, in lots of 20 markers, it might be, should they go into the United States or should they focus on growth in the UK? That would be option 1, and the other would be option 2. Okay, so you'd have to structure it accordingly. But there are always 2 things to explore, pros and cons for. In this question, it's local and national, and then we will have an overall recommendation. Now, this is going to be our overall answer. So we will recommend whether the UK government should or shouldn't. Yeah, should they support this or should they not? You're not going to sit on the fence. You're just going to say they should or they shouldn't. Either answer will be correct as long as it's contextualized and it's backed up. Okay, so this is the structure. And down the bottom here, we will have our MOPS, which will pop up when I get to that section. And we are looking for 4 P paragraphs. And yes, if you're looking for top level 4 marks, we are looking for sort of 5 chains of argument. The awarding body doesn't tell us how many chains, but it does talk about extended arguments. But it's not the number of them, it's what you're doing with them. Okay, so we will go through an answer and we will see if you think it's level 4 or not. So we're going to look at the local economy first. So the presence of a fast-growing global retailer. Yeah, so this is fast-growing global. That's a bit of application on the London Stock Exchange, LSE abbreviated, could attract investment and attention to the London financial markets. This is my point for my P paragraph. Then we see the classic P paragraph, those signposting terms like because, leading to, resulting in, or leading to, leading to, leading to, leading to, leading to. There is no magic formula of whichever acronym you're listening to online. We are looking for obvious chains of argument. Okay, so here I've stuck to the classic ones, and then we'll see if we get up to 5. This is important because this could enhance the city's status as a global financial hub, potentially, not definitely, because definitely would be a level 2 assertion, wouldn't it? Potentially leading to more listings and investments. The direct investment into London could result in job creation, very theoretical so far, particularly in the financial services. Oh, it's a bit better, nice bit of context there. Not much context about Shein. Legal and advisory roles, okay, to support their operations. Now, just because I'm reusing the name Shein, it's in the question, so it's not context, okay? Fast-growing global retailer, that is application. So we've got some application in there, not that impressed so far. This aligns with, that's sort of another chain of argument, the macroeconomic objectives of reducing unemployment and stimulating economic growth in the local economy. The end of the chain of argument comes back to the hook. The hook is impact on UK economy, and we're directly quoting a macroeconomic objective. There's a couple in there, unemployment and economic growth. Okay, not perfect so far. There's a gap here, so you know what's coming. Let's make sure that it is contextualized properly. This is where I really enjoy seeing quotation marks around stuff as long as you're using it. We're looking for interpretation of data. We're not looking for you to just quote it. But if it's fully contextualized, then it's level 4, hopefully, as long as you've got the other stuff right. According to EY, obviously that's the consultancy firm, and that's mentioned in one of the case studies, London saw a significant decline in company listings in 2023. So why is this important? Well, Shein's listing could reverse this trend. More context here, and there's context up there, demonstrating the city's ability to attract global companies outside the traditional tech and finance sectors, because that's what the article says the London Stock Exchange are normally well known at attracting. Okay, really well contextualized. There's a couple of bits of evidence in there, and there's at least 5 chains of argument. We then need a counter argument to, obviously, what we're talking about is more attractive, the UK becoming more attractive and helping with unemployment and economic growth. However, what a lovely word. I get excited over this because it makes me think there's a counter argument coming. While Shein's listing could bring economic benefits, it could also spotlight issues relating to the fast fashion industry application, such as environmental damage and poor labour practices. More application because this is mentioned in the case study. This is important because, forgot to underline that one. These concerns could lead to protests and negative publicity. Now, before I read the rest of the sentence, the reason I didn't underline it in the first place is because it just seemed like a tiny little bit of an introduction to this could lead to. So if my chains of argument aren't 100% contextualized, each one, then maybe the examiner will read this as one chain and not two. But we have got this could also spotlight issues. That's sort of a chain of reasoning moving towards something. So there was a reason why I didn't underline it in the first place. I just forgot. This could lead to protests, negative publicity, resulting in a negative impact on London's image as a sustainable and ethical financial market, linking in the poor labour practices. And remember, this is the counter argument to this, which is demonstrating how attractive this market is to companies. Down here might not be that attractive. Furthermore, at this point, I felt, is this a level 4 paragraph? Is there really enough there? I don't want to introduce another argument, but maybe something similar that can extend this argument in context. Furthermore, local businesses might face, it's a chain, increased competition, potentially leading to closures or layoffs. Remember, we're talking about unemployment up here. In the retail sector, this could negatively affect components of GDP, bit of theory, related to consumption of shares, not just consumption. It could be consumption in the retail sector, but this is about London Stock Exchange. We could just drop shares in there as well. Okay, it's an all right sentence. It's a bit mixed up because of a bit of retail and shares. Well, you can buy shares in a retail bank, I suppose, but at least it's contextualized. Then we're going to make sure that it is fully contextualized, and we're going to get in the habit of making sure that we've described and discussed the evidence. Fast fashion's impact on the environment and labour practices has been a global concern. We know that because it's in the article, with Shein often cited due to its rapid production turnaround and low-cost products. Okay, so the point up here is about sustainability and ethical behavior, and down here is why it is Shein. Okay, it's in context is my argument. Then we're looking at the advantages on the national economy. So nationally, well, here you go. Here comes nationally. Shein's listing could contribute positively to economic growth and trade balance. Very theoretical, but it is my point. This is important because by supporting Shein's IPO in London, the UK could see an inflow of foreign capital. We know what FDI looks like, boosting national investments, because we know that the I in GDP formula, aggregate demand, is to do with capital investments. If they list in the UK, hopefully they make some stuff in the UK. Therefore, FDI comes in. What are they going to do with it? Hopefully they're going to build stuff big enough that we would class it as capital investments. This could help the UK improve its growth towards the 2% real GDP growth per year. That's actually application, even though I'm bringing in my own evidence. And it's saying not only will it help achieve goals, but here is the tangible target of the UK government. We learned this in class. Why would I not use it? Which it is currently not achieving. That's actually reflecting on data extract C that states we are not achieving it because we've got that flat growth rate around about 0%. And here we go. Let's extend this argument a little bit because it might not have been level 4 before. Additionally, Shein's operational expansion could lead to increased exports in terms of providing services, of its services provided by Shein. Don't know why I need that. Positively impacting the UK's trade balance. They're coming to UK, they're going to invest money in the UK, maybe from China, FDI. They're going to build a factory, hopefully. This will help towards that. And also it might help even more if they start exporting from the UK. Very good. And we've got a bit of UK trade balance in there as well, imports versus exports. And we could have been talking about net exports. But we do want a little bit of definite contextualization. The potential of Shein's listing to reverse this decline in the LSE listings could signal the UK's open for business environment. Sort of a repeat of before, but it's there, encouraging further international investment and supporting sterling's value. Yes, we've studied how this might impact. We've got a bit of spiced in there, strong pounds, imports cheaper, exports dearer. And if we're exporting more stuff, maybe sterling gets stronger. Okay. Disadvantages to national. However, Shein's business model may pose long-term risks to the national economy. My point. This is important because Shein's success, driven by avoiding duties and rapid low-cost production, it's in the case study, might not align with national efforts towards sustainable and ethical economic development. I know we've mentioned this, but this is a different context. This might lead to encouraging businesses that potentially exploit these advantages. I don't really like the word exploit, but in context with this, maybe I can tolerate it, resulting in setting a precedent, as in, we don't want other companies to do this. This could deter other companies with more sustainable practices from listing in the UK. If we suddenly look like we're not that ethical because of Shein and attracting other companies like Shein, maybe we have problems. It's a bit of a generalization, but you never know. Moreover, extend that chain of argument a little bit further if you're uncertain, and you've got time, of course. The focus on low-cost imports could widen the UK's trade deficit in goods, counteracting, positive impacts on trade balance from the service exports. So if we get even more addicted to cheap stuff, even if Shein are making it in the UK, we could actually get even more imports from places like Bangladesh. Okay, we think about X minus M, net exports, and we understand the impacts on GDP because of it. Now, in our conclusion, we must very quickly at this point stop writing. Go back to your question and look at the hook, please. Because at this point, lots of students have put their body and soul and all their energy into their wonderful P paragraphs. They get to the conclusion and they accidentally answer a different question. So at this point, go back. Your advanced plan that I've done at the top here as an example, the hook is impact on the UK economy. Good. And should they or shouldn't they? Yeah. Should they or not? Oh, I forgot to do the evidence, didn't I? I forgot my thing. You can read the evidence is there. And that's from the case study. I do apologize. I was just contextualizing that. Got too excited myself. Overall, I recommend the UK government should support Shein's decision to list in the UK. So when we're marking this in class together, we would write an A because I've literally answered the question. Then I need to justify it. So let's make sure the examiner knows you're trying to justify it. And remember, we're not going to get any marks for repeating what we've already written. So we need to not introduce a new argument, but maybe a slightly different spin on it. My justification, please read examiner, please look for my justification for this, is that the short-term economic benefits and the potential to enhance London's global financial status presents opportunities that outweigh these risks. It's a bit waffly at the moment, okay? But we've got short-term. Short-term is quite a nice term to see in a justification because it then leads my mocks to be open for slightly longer term. Without, and here's the rest of the justification, by the way, which stops it from being too waffly, without Shein listing on in the UK, and this is the key. Up here, they should, and now I'm going to describe what it might look like without them doing it. They might miss out on the benefits mentioned above, so I'm not going to repeat them. Now, in some ways, that's a nice flip. Could be contextualized better, by the way, but it is because it's that opportunity cost style of argument. And then we think about longer term macroeconomic objectives. Now, I'm not going to be writing clearly my headings that I've put in here for you. Yeah, none of this is going to be written because you just haven't got time really. It's just to help you understand the structure. But here, In the future, well, here we've got short term, and now we're possibly thinking about slightly longer term. And remember, the hook is impact on the UK economy. So UK economy is something to do with those macroeconomic objectives. In the future, Shein's listing could encourage more international businesses to consider London, diversifying the market. Now, this bit we've had already. So that bit we've had already. This is a slight building on our previous argument, diversifying the market and stimulating competition. If the UK seems more open to business than the USA, this is the extra little bit, because remember, the initial bit of the question was they were talking about how they might not go to the US because of their legislation. Is actually in that intro sentence here, the challenges, and we've not mentioned it through the whole of the answer, so we need to really acknowledge it somewhere, and here it is. Hopefully, more companies will launch IPOs in the UK, helping the UK get closer to achieving its macroeconomic goals, as we saw when the Irish government lowered their corporation tax, resulting in the Irish GDP per capita to significantly increase. Now, this isn't, the Irish government is not in the case study. However, this is paper 3. You're allowed to bring in a bit of your own knowledge. This is a 20 marker. I would hope you'd bring in some of your own knowledge, as long as you're answering the question in context with the case studies. Now, we've done the Pfizer question, which is pretty much the same question as this, because I stole it and adapted it. So if you understand the impact of lowering your corporate taxation rates, and we know that the Irish population have got one of the world's highest GDP per capita rates, because we did the research in class, why would you not use it? Okay, this actually reinforces the message of bringing multinational corporations into the UK. And yes, this is not through lower corporation tax. This is basically through having more friendly legislation compared to the United States. Hopefully that was helpful. Here's the standards. So we are aiming for level 4. We are not aiming for perfection. You need to make sure that you are completing the papers. You're not spending more than 24 minutes on writing and planning this question, and that's as long as you've not messed up your timing at the rest of the paper. Don't fall into the trap of the easy 8s and 10s where people over answer them and run out of time later in the paper. Okay, manage your time, practice full 2-hour papers, get into the flow, and you'll be fine. If you can do 3 chains of argument, contextualize, balance, answer the question, you should be able to get to top level 3, low level 4. Okay. If you then can compare and contrast arguments, because without doing this might be the impact, there's a comparison. It could be thinking about those future recommendations with our MOPs, for example. Then you can squeeze a bit further up towards mid to top level 4. However, if you start doing 5 chains of argument, you're bringing in other theories like we did in our answer, I would hope that you're going to be mid-level 4, depending on who's marking your essay. If you get 15 out of 20, you should be doing cartwheels, because that's 75%. 75% in 2019 was an A star. And if we all get A stars, we can all live the dream. Okay. If you aim for perfection on every single question and you're not brilliant with timing, you're going to probably leave that second 12 marker blank, and you'll go down a grade boundary just on that question because of poor management of time. You need to decide at this time of the year, really, are you a 3 chain of argument person and focusing on contextualization and everything else? Or are you a 5 chain of argument person and using other theories to complement your 12 and 20 markers? You decide. As long as you're finishing papers, you've done the revision, you'll be fine. Context is king. Abstract answers get no more than half marks. Okay? Think about that answer. You'll see that sometimes I've purposefully, if I can find where my mouse is, I purposely have said things like additionally. Now, I've done this on purpose for those that struggle with time, because if I was only to write this up to 2% real GDP, for example, up to there, I've got at least 3 chains of argument. It's fully contextualized. It's in context with macroeconomic goals. If I was to read that and a bit of evidence on the end, I think it's level 4. Yeah, your teachers can advise you if they believe it's level 4 or not. You don't need to aim for perfection. You just need to aim for level 4 and completing the paper. Okay. Good revision. See you later.